Hi, this is Marek from TechSolo. Today I'd like to talk about a game called Race to the Raft. This is a game I have received for review from the publisher City of Games. Thanks for sending it. And this is a game set in the same universe as Isle of Cats, a game you could have probably heard of. But this time this is a tile placement cooperative puzzle game, and this is really cool. Because yes, you've heard right, this is a puzzle game, but it's a cooperative game. In this game, you will have to help cats that are trapped on an island full of fire and smoke to reach the raft safely and escape from the burning island. You will place fire tiles, you will play different cards, you will create paths with cards, to lead the cats to safety. This is a game for 1 to 4 players. It can be played solo, of course. Now I'd like to show you how to play this game and what are the rules, and then I will tell you what I think about Race to the Raft. This is the first scenario of Race to the Raft. In order to play the game, you have to open the campaign book. You have to choose a scenario. Here you have some description of the cats. And there are different scenarios that you can choose from. Tutorial, practice, and then you have different campaigns, then you have advanced tutorial, advanced campaigns, and so on. So for example, this is the first tutorial scenario called First Steps. It shows you which tiles you have to use, which cat cards you have to place, 3, 5, 7, so we have 3, 5, and 7, and where to place the fire cards. You have a deck of fire cards that you have to place on the boards to cover the boards with fire. And it shows you where to place the raft. The raft is here. This is a card. You place it on the board. And this is where the cats need to go. We have 3 cats and they need to go to the raft. Other scenarios have different layout, different types of cats, and so on and so on. You create this board from these tiles. You have big tiles, you have small tiles. They are double-sided, they have more fire on one side, less fire on the other side. So when you create the scenario, you take random tiles. The size matters and the side with fire or without. So each time you play the game, even the same scenario, the game will look a little different. Here are the cards for the fire. This is the basic scenario, so the raft looks like this, but there are different rafts that will be used in other campaigns, more advanced scenarios. Here any cat can reach the raft from any side. In more advanced scenarios, specific cats in specific color need to reach the raft from certain sides. You have different color of cats. We have red cats, blue cats, and so on. Sometimes we have even white Oshak's cats. How you play the game? At the start of each round, each player needs to choose 3 cards. You have 4 decks, with square, with X, with triangle, and with the circle. Each face down side of the deck of the card shows you which color of paths are more likely to be found inside this card. So here you have most green paths, then yellow, some purple, some red, and some blue. For example, in the deck with the circle, you have a lot of blue squares, a lot of red squares, some yellow, some green, but completely no purple. So you have to look at the board. You have to see which cats you have, and you have to decide which cards you want to take. You can take only 3 cards. Then you will place the cards. For example, let me take this card. You will use the cards to create paths in specific color. Green color can only move on green squares. Orange on orange and blue on blue. So for example, if this is my card and I will put it here, I will create a nice path for the green cat. So you have to look at the decks and decide which type of cards would be helpful for you. At this stage, before you take any cards, you can discuss everything with your co-players. You can talk, you can decide which cards to take or what will be your strategy for the next round. After any player will start taking cards, you cannot talk anymore and you cannot suggest other player what type of cards he or she will take. Also, you cannot look at the cards, you have to take them face down, free card. So for example, I see I have a orange cat and green cat and a yellow cat and a green cat and blue cat. So I will take this card, it has green and blue. I will take maybe this cat, this card, it has some yellow, and maybe this card, it will be good for green and yellow. Now I can look at my cards, but I have to do it secretly. I cannot show my cards to other player. The rule here is, this is a cooperative game, but you cannot show your cards to other players. You can discuss what type of cards you have, but you cannot be any specific. For example, if I have this card, I can tell my co-player that I have a card that has some red squares on it. I cannot tell that I have two red squares. Or for example, I can say that this card, I have a card that is good for a green cat, it has a lot of green, but I cannot tell the other player that it has 5 squares in the shape of a letter T. So you can discuss the cards, but you cannot be too specific. And you have 3 cards. What can you do with the cards? One action is that you can add a pathway. You can take one of the cards in your hand and you can add it to the board. The rules, of course, are that you cannot put a card on a fire. You cannot put a card so it goes out of the board. You cannot place any card on the cat, but you can place cards on other cards or on other squares that are printed on the board. Okay, so I have this card. I have decided to add it as a pathway to the board. I will put it, for example, like this. Now the green cat has a nice longer route to reach the raft. Now, when I decided to add the card to the board, I have to take this big, huge black bag that you haven't seen already, and I have to randomly take one fire tile. And now I have to add this tile somewhere on the board in a way that will not block the cat. Let's say I will put it here. When one player decides to add a card as a pathway to the board, all players cannot talk to each other. Again, before they decide to play the card, they can discuss some strategy, but after a player chooses to play the card, no one can talk, no one can say anything. It's up to the active player to play the card, to randomly draw a fire tile and to add it to the board. No one can hint the player what to do. Another thing that you can do, you can discard one card and put it on the side of the board, and you can move your cat. You can move it any number of spaces you want, as long as the color of the cat matches the color of the path. So for example, I have put the cat so you can see it, but normally they should stand. Now when I decide to move the green cat, I will put it here, and now I will have to lay down the cat. It means the cat is exhausted. If I would like to move the same cat again on the same round, I will have to spend 2 cards instead of 1. And as my third action, for example, I will add this card here to make a path for the yellow cat, and I have again to take another fire tile. The second player can do the same. There is no player order. It's up to you, up to the players to decide if one player will do all the actions, one action for one player, other action for the other player. It's up to you. When all players use all the 3 cards, the round ends. All exhausted cats are not exhausted anymore. All the players will draw 3 new cards and the game will continue. You will win the game, you will win the scenario when all cats will reach the raft, and you will lose if you have to take a fire token from the fire tile from the back, but you cannot place it anymore anywhere here because the board is full, or you have blocked a path of the cat and it cannot reach the raft, or you are out of the cards here, then you will lose. If you win, you get 5 points for a scenario. If you lose, you get 0 points. These are the basic rules. There are, of course, a lot of additional rules, because during the game, after the first scenario, you will get communication tokens. In a two-player game, each player will get these 2 tokens, and you can discard this token during an action of other player to, if you discard this token, you can talk with the other player and you can, talk with him, discuss something. For example, if you see that the other player is going to place a fire tile somewhere on the board, you can discard this token once per game and you can talk with this player what to do. And there is the meow token. It works similar. You can discard this token when it's other player's action, but you cannot talk anything, you cannot say anything, you can only say meow meow. So if you see that the other player is going to place a fire token in a place that you don't want to, you can say meow 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 meow. If it's a good place, meow meow. It sounds funny, but you have to use the meow sound to guide other player what to do. Then you have these water tokens, and if you get them in the future scenarios, you can discard 1 fire token and you will not have to place a fire tile on the board, but using each fire token will subtract 1 victory point from the final score. There is one more thing I forgot to tell you. When you discard cards to move cats on the board, you discard them on the disaster pile, and anytime there are 4 cards on the disaster pile, you have to draw another fire tile from the back. So not only adding cards as a pathways will add fire, but also each time there are 4 cards in the disaster pile, you have to draw another tile. The scenarios get more complex during the game. In more advanced campaigns, you have more cats. Sometimes the cats have to reach the raft in a specific order. Sometimes they have to reach the raft from a specific site. In the even more advanced version, you have this disaster deck with some cards. And when you have 4 cards on the disaster pile, you don't just add a fire tile from the back, but you take randomly 1 card from the disaster pile and you read what happens. So this is how the game basically works. As I said, a lot of scenarios, a lot of campaigns, easier one, more advanced one, they all have the setup here. You get 5 points for finishing a scenario. For finishing the whole campaign, you have to sum all the points, and this is your score for a specific campaign. As for the solo mode, the game works more or less the same like in a 2-player game. Of course, you don't use the communication tokens because you don't have other players to talk to, but basically at the start of the round, you will have to choose 3 cards from the decks. This will be your 3 cards. Then you can choose another 3 cards and you will put them face down on the table. And during the round, if you play a card from your hand, then you will take one of the face down cards from the table. If you take all the 3 face down cards from the table, you will play until all 3 cards from your hand are played. So basically, in a solo game during one round, you will use 6 cards, but at one time you only have 3 cards in your hand. All the other rules are more or less the same. Race to the Raft is a wonderful game, I have to say it straight away. I think this might be the best puzzle game I have played this year so far. It has extremely easy rules because you have 3 cards in your hand. You can either place a card on the board to create a path, and then you have to randomly take the fire token and add it to the board, or you can discard the card to move a cat. That's really it. And it's so easy, you could explain this game to anyone in about a minute, but it gives you so many different choices and so many puzzles, and you have to think and plan how to lead the cat to safety. The whole idea that you have over 80 scenarios divided into tutorial, introductory campaign, some easy campaign, advanced campaign is really great, because even though you have the scenarios, they are all replayable, because you randomly draw cards from the decks, you will randomly construct the game board. The thing that the scenario will tell you that will stay the same each time you play a scenario is the location, the initial location of the cats and the color of the cats, but that's basically it. Everything is in random, even though you have over 80 scenarios, and the scenarios are great because they teach you the game with just the basic stuff, and each scenario will introduce some more advanced rules, some more advanced actions. And this is a great way to learn the game, to introduce everything step by step. The initial scenarios are very easy, but then you will have to lead cats in a specific order to the raft. Some cats will have to stay together. You will have this Oshak's white cat that only move on this white pathways. A lot of things, a lot of cool things. You have these tokens that allow you to talk to each other, but also that allow you to meow to each other. it's really fun. The funny thing is that I have received this game when I had a visit from my friend, and during a few days we have played only very heavy games, games like Machina Arcana, Hexplored, Return to Dark Tower, cooperative, fantasy, heavy games. And then I have received Race to the Raft, and I told him, okay, maybe we'll try this game. This is not a heavy game, but let's try it. And we took this game to a board game pub, and we played like 5 or 6 scenarios in a row. It's so fun. And we old guys with beards, we played Race to the Raft. We have led cats to safety, and we had so much fun. I really love that this game is a cooperative one. If you don't have kids, you don't know what it means to have a cooperative game that you can play with your kids, and that are not some stupid dummy kids games. I have a daughter, she's 7. She plays Cascadia with me, for example, but she's not really a fan of competitive game. She doesn't like to lose. She doesn't like to play against me. And there are really not that many cooperative games that are clever, that you can play with your kids, for example, that don't have very complicated rules, but that allow you to play together, to win together or lose together, but do things cooperatively. And Race to the Raft is amazing because you can play together. It's a clever way that you have your cards in your hand. You cannot show the cards to your co-player. You can discuss about the cards, but vaguely. You cannot tell exactly what you have on your card. With this meow and token, you can, meow meow, and that's how you can tell other player what to do. But basically, you can play cooperatively, and you can, work together on the puzzle. It's great. I had another game, tile placement game called Beacon Patron recently. It was also a cooperative game, a game that my daughter really likes. And I thought it is fun, and now I have another cooperative puzzle game I can play with, not only my daughter, but other adult players as well. But a cool game that is cooperative game. If you play all the basic scenarios and all the basic rules, you can play the advanced scenarios that add another level of complexity. You cannot freely move your cat any number of spots you want. You have more complex rules. You have this disaster deck with additional cards that will change the game a little, that have some negative events that make your game more difficult. Really cool. A lot of variants, a lot of complexity, different campaigns, a solo mode that plays basically like a 2-player game because you have 3 cards in your hand and you have additional 3 cards face down on the table. After you play 1 card, you take 1 of the cards from the table. Cool, clever game. To be honest, when I have seen Race to the Raft on the Kickstarter, and when I have seen some photos online, I wasn't sure if I want to play this game. It was not as beautiful as Isle of Cats. Isle of Cats was amazing. It looked amazing. It had the whole tiles with the cat and the shipboard. It looked great. Race to the Raft looked like, you know, a little like a mess. You had this board with a lot of square tiles. All of them were in different colors. I wasn't sure if it's a great game. After I played it, I can say it's really, really great. Family plus puzzle game. If you like puzzles, you can play it solo, you can play it with others, you can play it with kids. Great cooperative game. There will be additional scenarios that you can get for free from the website. The creator of this game will add additional scenarios that you can download. If you back this game on Kickstarter, there was a Kickstarter pack with even more scenarios. I'm not sure what's inside because I have just the base game, but there was this additional box with some more. I think there were miniatures of the cats and some additional scenarios. But even with the base game, you have over 80 scenarios that are fully replayable, so enough to keep you entertained for a long time. Click the like button if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, visit me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter to find more photos of this game and of other games. Thank you for watching, see you next time, bye bye.